March 26, 1827. A thunderstorm rages over Vienna. Inside a cramped apartment, a 56-year-old man lies dying. Lightning strikes, and in that flash, he raises his fist toward the sky. One final act of defiance, one last rebellion against the universe itself. Ludwig van Beethoven, completely deaf for over a decade, and he just spent the last 3 years composing a symphony he would never hear. But here's what gets me. That premiere in 1824, he was still conducting, completely deaf, moving his arms, giving cues, while the actual conductor told the musicians to ignore him. And at the end, he kept going. Several measures past the finale. Had no idea 20,000 people were on their feet screaming. Someone had to physically turn him around to see the applause, and wait till you see what was in those conversation books. 139 of them survived. Pocket-sized notebooks where people wrote their half of conversations because he couldn't hear. Shopping lists next to sketches for the Ninth Symphony. Arguments about mousetraps and nephew troubles right before composing movements that would change music forever. The man counted exactly 60 coffee beans every single morning, even when he had guests. Obsessive doesn't begin to cover it. His chart predicted all of it. Sun and moon both in Sagittarius. That unstoppable fire that refuses to accept any limitation. Venus in Capricorn attracted to unattainable women. 3 mysterious love letters to someone he never identified. Mars in 8th. Transformation through communication. He lost his hearing and in response transformed how humanity understands music itself. And that final fist to the sky during the thunderstorm? The most Sagittarius exit in history. But wait till you hear what his nephew did in 1826, because that custody battle, that shadow side, Sagittarius self-righteousness, that almost ended in tragedy. Before we get into this, subscribe if you love seeing historical figures through their charts. Hit like if you're ready for this story. And real talk? Would you rather have Beethoven's Sagittarius fire, the refusal to let deafness stop you, knowing it comes with brutal isolation and obsessive habits that drive everyone away? Or would you pass on that trade? Comment below because I genuinely want to know where you stand on this. So, Ludwig van Beethoven, born December 16, 1770 in Bonn, Germany. Sagittarius sun, Sagittarius moon. I don't have a confirmed birth time, so the rising sign is disputed. Some say Scorpio, some say Taurus. But that double Sagittarius alone explains so much. Sun and moon, both in Sagittarius, both in the 2nd house. Double fire energy, philosophical optimism, and a core value system centered on art and beauty. Mercury also in Sagittarius. Visionary thinking, big picture concepts. This man thought in universal themes. Venus in Capricorn. Disciplined in love and art. Attracted to unattainable ideals, which we'll definitely get to. And Mars in Gemini in the 8th house. Transformation through communication and sound. The universe really looked at that placement and said, let's test this. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, philosophy, higher truth. These people believe in something greater than themselves. They're eternal optimists who see obstacles as challenges to overcome rather than reasons to quit. And when you've got Sun and Moon in Sagittarius, that optimism is bone deep, unshakable. The chart screams one thing: tell me I can't, and I'll prove you wrong, even if it destroys me. December 16th, 1770, Bonn, Germany. A musical family, but not a happy one. His grandfather Ludwig was Kapellmeister at the court of the Archbishop of Cologne, respected, successful. But his son Johann, Beethoven's father, and that's where everything went dark. Johann van Beethoven was a court tenor with massive ambition and a drinking problem. Both his mother and his wife struggled with alcoholism too. He saw what Leopold Mozart did with Wolfgang, parading a child prodigy around Europe, making a fortune. Johann wanted that desperately. So when he realized his son Ludwig had talent, he became obsessed. The abuse started early. Midnight practice sessions, Johann would stumble home from the tavern drunk, drag his friends back, and wake up little Ludwig. One childhood friend reported that Ludwig was beaten regularly. A court official said Johann sometimes locked him in the cellar, If Ludwig made a mistake, Johann would slam the piano lid on his knuckles and force him to start over. If Ludwig played poorly, Johann called it an embarrassment to the family. If he played perfectly? No praise, just more demands. This is textbook alcoholic parent behavior, unpredictable, controlling, chaotic, and for young Beethoven with that Sagittarius sun, being controlled like this was torture. Sagittarius needs freedom more than almost anything. They rebel against authority instinctively. That defiant spirit was being forged in the worst possible way. But here's the thing about Sagittarius. They find meaning in suffering. They philosophize it into something bigger. And Beethoven did love music itself, not his father's brutal methods, but the actual art, that second house placement, artistic values at the core of his identity. Music wasn't just a skill, it was his truth. His mother, Maria Magdalena, was gentle, loving, but worn down by life. She passed in 1787 when Beethoven was 16. Tuberculosis, that devastated him. She was the only source of warmth in that house. His father spiraled worse. By the time Beethoven was 17, Johann was so unreliable that Ludwig had to become the family breadwinner. He petitioned the court to exile his father and give him half Johann's salary directly. At 17, supporting two younger brothers, Sagittarius doesn't wait for permission when they see what needs doing. Beethoven was done with Bonn, moved to Vienna to study with Joseph Haydn. His father passed a month later. Beethoven didn't go back for the funeral. That relationship was over. Vienna in the 1790s was the place for music, and Beethoven arrived with fire in his eyes. That Sagittarius energy made him magnetic. He was a brilliant pianist, could improvise like nobody else. Audiences loved watching him create music in real time, pulling ideas out of the air. He started making connections, aristocratic patrons, music publishers, and he wasn't humble about his talent. That Venus in Capricorn made him disciplined, but the double fire made him bold. He knew he was good, told people so. By 1800, he'd premiered his first symphony. Critics compared him to Mozart and Haydn. At 29, he was on top of the world. And then, late 1790s, he started noticing something wrong with his hearing. Tinnitus first, ringing that wouldn't stop. Then, trouble hearing high-pitched sounds, conversations in crowded rooms became difficult. He'd smile and nod, pretending to hear, terrified someone would notice. For a musician, this was nightmare fuel. For Beethoven, specifically, it was existential horror. His entire identity was built on music. He's 31. The hearing loss is getting worse. His doctor sent him to Heiligenstadt, a quiet village outside Vienna, hoping rest would help. It didn't. October 6, 1802. Beethoven wrote a letter to his brothers. Never sent it. They found it after he passed. It's called the Heiligenstadt Testament, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. He described the isolation, how he'd pull away from social situations because he couldn't hear, how people thought he was rude when really he was hiding his disability, how he contemplated taking his own life. Direct quote, "Such incidents drove me almost to despair. A little more of that, and I would have ended my life. But then, this is the Sagittarius part. This is where that philosophical fire saves him. It was only my art that held me back. It seemed to me impossible to leave the world until I had brought forth all that I felt was within me." Sagittarius believes in purpose, in destiny. And Beethoven's purpose was music. That conviction that his art mattered more than his comfort. That's what kept him alive. He came back from Heiligenstadt different, more determined, and entered what historians call his heroic period. 1803 to 1812, peak creativity, peak Beethoven, the Eroica Symphony, originally dedicated to Napoleon because Beethoven admired him as a freedom fighter, until Napoleon crowned himself emperor. Beethoven was so furious he scratched Napoleon's name off the title page. Sagittarius hates tyrants, hates anyone who betrays principles for power. Then, the Fifth Symphony, da-da-da-dum, fate knocking at the door. Beethoven's response, come at me. The Sixth Symphony, the pastoral, nature themes, expansive landscapes, Sagittarius energy. His only opera, Fidelio, about rescuing someone from political imprisonment. Freedom as the central theme. The Violin Concerto, Piano Concerto No. 5, masterpiece after masterpiece, all while going progressively deaf. By 1813, nearly deaf, couldn't hear conversation, started using conversation books. People would write questions, he'd respond aloud. By the time he passed in 1827, 139 of these pocket-sized notebooks survived, and they're wild. Shopping lists next to musical sketches, sugar, paper, barber's razor, chamber pot, right next to themes for the Missa Solemnis, arguments about mousetraps and nephew troubles mixed with discussions of Shakespeare and Goethe. One entry shows him working out ideas for the Ninth Symphony in a downtown coffee shop. The books also reveal his daily routine, creature of habit. Up at 5 a.m., concentrated work until noon. Then he'd wash, go shopping, have lunch at 2 p.m. with guests, more errands at 3:30. At 5 p.m., he'd go to a coffee house, smoke a pipe, read papers, then light supper in bed by 10 p.m., and that morning, ritual. This is peak Sagittarius obsessive behavior. He'd count exactly 60 coffee beans for his cup every single morning, even when he had guests watching. If he miscounted, he'd start over. His secretary Anton Schindler wrote that Beethoven was oriental in his fastidiousness about coffee. He'd prepare it in a special glass contraption, grinding those precisely counted beans himself. 60 beans, every day, for years. The man who composed the most expansive philosophical symphonies in history needed this one tiny pocket of control. The isolation was crushing, though. Sagittarius needs social connection, needs to share ideas, needs philosophical conversations. And Beethoven was cut off from all of that. His love life was a disaster. That Venus in Capricorn attracted him to aristocratic women who couldn't marry him. Class differences. He fell hard, repeatedly, for women who were fundamentally unattainable. The immortal, beloved mystery. Summer 1812. He wrote passionate love letters to someone, 10 pages, never sent them, never named her, found them in his desk after he passed. My heart is full of so many things to say to you. Remain my true, my only love, my all, as I am yours. Scholars still debate who she was. Most think it was Antony Brentano, but we'll never know for sure. Venus in Capricorn can be like that. Deeply loyal, intensely committed, but often to people or ideals they can't actually have. His brother Caspar passed, left behind a wife Johanna and a son Karl, and Beethoven decided he should raise Karl. Saw Johanna as unfit, started a brutal 7-year custody battle. He won, got custody, and proceeded to be an overbearing guardian that suffocated the kid. Peak Sagittarius shadow side, the self-righteousness, the conviction that he knew what was right and everyone else was wrong. Karl, now 19, couldn't take it anymore. He bought a pistol, climbed to the Rauhenstein ruins, shot himself twice in the head, fractured his skull but survived. When they found him, he asked to be taken to his mother. Beethoven's reputation in Vienna was destroyed. The public called him a monster, and he didn't write a single note for years. The emotional devastation was complete. But wait, remember that 8th house Mars placement, transformation through crisis, because Karl's attempt in 1826 actually pushed Beethoven into his final creative period, 1815 to 1827, his late period, completely deaf, and this is when he composed his greatest works, the Ninth Symphony. Started 1822, finished 1824. He's working from pure internal vision, can't hear a single note, writing it all from memory, from understanding musical structure so deeply he doesn't need ears. Recent research on those conversation books suggests he could still hear some vibrations through bone conduction. But functionally, for music, gone. The Missa Solemnis, he considered it his greatest achievement. The late string quartets, so advanced, so complex, that critics called them incomprehensible. Now they're considered some of the most profound chamber music ever written. Here's how he did it. He'd pound on the piano so hard the strings would break, feeling the vibrations through his hands, through the floor. He'd visualize the score in his mind, every instrument, every voice, hearing it internally with perfect clarity. He composed from a place beyond sound, pure mathematical relationships, pure emotional intuition, pure philosophical understanding of what music could express. May 7th, 1824, Theater am Karntnertor in Vienna. The premiere of the Ninth Symphony, Beethoven insisted on conducting, even though he was completely deaf. The actual conductor, Michael Umlauf, told the musicians to follow him, not Beethoven, but Beethoven stood on stage anyway, throwing himself around like he could hear every note. The Ninth was revolutionary, first major symphony to include vocal soloists and full chorus. The fourth movement set Schiller's Ode to Joy to music, a celebration of universal brotherhood. The performance was chaotic, only 2 full rehearsals, parts of it uneven. But the audience didn't care. They erupted. By the end, Beethoven was still conducting, several measures behind the actual music, completely unaware the piece had ended. The audience was on their feet. Standing ovation, hats and handkerchiefs thrown in the air, 5 rounds of applause. He couldn't hear any of it. The contralto soloist, Caroline Unger, walked over and turned him around to face the crowd, and he saw it. Thousands of people cheering for this symphony he'd never actually heard. That's the ultimate Sagittarius triumph. Doing what everyone said was impossible, believing so hard in your vision that reality has to bend. The next 3 years were decline. His health was failing, likely cirrhosis from drinking. In December 1826, he got seriously ill. Karl had just left to join the army. Beethoven was alone, March 26, 1827. He's bedridden. A thunderstorm hits Vienna, according to his friend Anselm Hüttenbrenner, who was there. Lightning struck, thunder crashed, and Beethoven, who'd been lying still, suddenly raised his right arm toward the sky. Fist clenched, like he was challenging the storm itself. Then he fell back. Gone. 56 years old, his funeral 3 days later drew 20,000 people. They closed the theaters. Franz Schubert was a torchbearer. The poet Franz Grillparzer wrote the eulogy. That double Sagittarius predicted all of it. The philosophical conviction that art was worth any suffering. The vision of something greater than himself. The transformation of personal tragedy into universal beauty. And yes, the shadow side too, the self-righteousness, the controlling behavior, the inability to see how he hurt the people he loved. His Mars in 8th house, transformation through communication. He lost his ability to hear and transformed how humanity understands music, proved that music doesn't have to be heard to be composed. His Venus in Capricorn showed up in his relentless work ethic, his attraction to unattainable ideals. He wanted perfection, immortality, and he got it. The Ninth Symphony became the European anthem. His music bridged the classical and romantic eras. Every composer after him had to reckon with his shadow. All of it. The greatest symphonies, the late quartets, the Missa Solemnis, composed in silence, in that internal world where Sagittarius lives anyway. The world of ideas, of philosophy, of belief in something beyond the physical. March 26th, during a thunderstorm, raising his fist to the sky. That's how a Sagittarius goes out, defiant to the absolute end. Never surrendered. Not to his father's abuse, not to deafness, not to isolation, not to the universe itself. The man counted 60 coffee beans every morning for control, wrote in 139 conversation books just to have conversations, pounded pianos till strings broke just to feel the vibrations, and composed masterpieces he never heard. That's not stubbornness. That's Sagittarius faith, the belief that you're here for a reason bigger than comfort, that your purpose matters more than your limitations, that the universe can throw whatever it wants and you'll still find a way to create beauty. Beethoven's chart didn't make him go deaf, but it did make him incapable of letting deafness stop him. That philosophical fire, that conviction that art was divine and therefore worth any sacrifice. And maybe that's the ultimate Sagittarius lesson. Limitations are just invitations to transcend. Suffering is raw material for meaning. And the human spirit, when it truly believes in something, is absolutely unstoppable.